A millionaire was haunted by a girl's plea, "Save my brother," the unbelievable truth revealed. The night sky over Manhattan was thick with clouds, a heavy gray blanket that stifled moonlight and wrapped the city in an unsettling gloom. Somewhere in a penthouse, perched high above the bustling streets, a millionaire named Oliver Chase sat alone, fingers trembling around a glass of whiskey. It was just another Thursday, or so he thought, but the air smelled different, a mixture of rain and dread that sent goosebumps racing down his arms. Suddenly, the peaceful evening shattered like glass. A voice, soft yet piercing, echoed in his mind, "Save my brother." It was a haunting plea that curled around his heart with icy fingers, a ghostly whisper that made his breath hitch. No one was there. The sleek, minimalist decor of his home offered no comfort, only an uncanny stillness that felt alive, watching him. It happened again, the voice rising from the depths of his memory, a familiar tone that sent chills cascading down his spine like a chilling wind from a lonely grave. He closed his eyes, and in that moment, he was back in his childhood, in the dilapidated house where his little sister, Lily, once played. Why was she suddenly in his head, begging him to save someone he'd never known? First strange element. As he sat paralyzed by the haunting sound, his phone vibrated against the table, the flashing screen illuminating his face like a beacon in the dark. An unknown number. His gut twisted, a tightness in his chest growing unbearable. The world outside faded into a blur as he answered, sweat trickling down his back. "Hello?" he croaked, praying it wasn't another business call. But what responded wasn't a voice, it was static. Chilling, eerie static, the kind that brought back memories he wished to bury with the past. Mixes of laughter and cries swirled around him, emotions pulling him under like a ripped tide. Tension escalated. He slammed the phone down, the sound echoing in the emptiness. Heart racing, he flipped open his laptop and typed, "Mysterious girl saves brother," as if the search could fill the growing void. But even as words filled the screen, he was struck by fear that pooled in the pit of his stomach. Images of boys with sunken eyes flashed before him, stories of abduction and loss blending into the monstrous tale being woven around him. Shadows danced in the corners of his mind, whispering dark thoughts that he tried to blink away. But they only grew bolder. What if, in saving this unknown boy, he had to confront the weight of his past? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Back to the chase. With a sudden resolve, Oliver grabbed his coat, the sound of fabric crinkling filling the air like a breaking spine. He had to find her. He had to know what this mystery meant. The soft, pleading voice of his sister echoed once more, and he shivered, sensing the urgency that pulled him forward. Outside, the streets glistened under a slick layer of rain, neon lights reflecting fragmented images of the desperation swirling within him. He couldn't do nothing. He had to act. The city pulsed with life as he stepped outside, but it suddenly felt more like a labyrinth, every turn shadowed by the lurking dangers of a dark destiny. Oliver was determined but terrified, the faces of strangers floating past blurring into one. He clutched his phone in a fist like a talisman, every heartbeat a call to the unknown. As he moved deeper into the night, a question loomed larger: who was this boy? And what did it mean to save him? The chilling wind carried a foreboding secret that nipped at his heels. Rain slicked the pavement as Oliver navigated his way through the throngs of pedestrians, the city alive with nightlife but caged in his swirling thoughts. The chatter and laughter of a nearby bar seeped into his consciousness, but all he could think about was that voice, Lily's voice. It clawed at him, demanding his attention, urging him forward into the pulse of Manhattan, and yet, each step felt carved from stone. As he caught sight of a flickering neon sign, it struck him that he needed guidance. He fished his phone out and navigated to a resource he never thought he'd need: online forums. Children missing in NYC. His stomach twisted as he typed in the search bar, each letter weighed down by fear. His hands shook as he scrolled through lists and names that could belong to anyone: a boy with hazel eyes, another with curly hair, missing without a trace. The tales blared in stark contrast to his privileged life. They were raw, full of heartbreak, each one a shattered family, an unshed tear. His fingers hesitated over a name: a boy named Ethan Carter. 12 years old. Last seen near Central Park. Oliver's breath caught. The photo struck a chord, a pang of recognition. Any chance this was the boy she meant? A rush of guilt hit him like a freight train. He had the resources to help, and yet, for years, he'd turned a blind eye to the harder truths of the world. Before he could ponder further, a sudden noise jolted him: a crash of glass echoing down the street. Instinct kicked in, and he spun to face the direction of the sound, his heart pounding like a war drum. A figure, cloaked in shadow, stumbled out of an alley, a young boy frantically waving. "Help!" The boy screamed, his voice a desperate plea that sliced through the night like a knife. Oliver's heart raced as he rushed towards the sound, dread blossoming in his chest. "Please! They're coming!" The boy gasped, fear etched across his face. In that moment, the world round him faded away. Oliver's instincts kicked in: this was the boy. But who was pursuing him? Who? He shouted, glancing back at the alley. "Who's coming after you?" The boy shook his head, eyes wide with panic. "I don't know. Just they want to take me." Oliver felt his throat tighten. This was far too real, far too dangerous. He could already hear faint footsteps echoing in the distance, the sound of what felt like impending doom. As the boy reached for Oliver's arm, a sharp noise shattered the air like thunder. "Run!" Oliver yelled, propelling them into a sprint as adrenaline coursed through his veins. The city became a blur: the lights, the faces, everything dissolving into a relentless chase. With every stride, Oliver felt the weight of Lily's plea. Everyone mentioned saving. But save whom? The boy or himself? Suddenly, that question was moot as a car screeched to a halt ahead, and a clustered group of men in dark jackets emerged, faces obscured. "Ethan!" One of them called, a twisted sort of glee tightening his lips. Oliver's heart dropped. They knew the boy by name. In a split second, everything came rushing forth: the need to protect this child, the haunting weight of his past, and the ghostly echoes of Lily's voice guiding him. With no time to think, Oliver gripped Ethan's hand tighter than ever, and they dashed toward the nearest alley. But in the unfolding chaos, a terrible realization set in: if he couldn't save Ethan, he might just end up resurrecting the demons of his own past as they fled into the night. Oliver had no idea just how deep the roots of this mystery went, or how personal the revelations would become. The danger was only deepening, ready to ensnare them both in a web far darker than he had anticipated. What were they hiding? And at what cost would he uncover the truth? The shadows seemed to stretch and twist around Oliver and Ethan as they raced deeper into the dim labyrinth of alleys. The air was thick with the scent of rain-soaked pavement and the tang of desperation. Each patter of feet behind them echoed like a countdown, reminding Oliver that time was not on their side. "Where are we going?" Ethan cried, breathless and terrified. "Just anywhere but here." Oliver managed, tugging the boy along as they veered left. Heart pounding, he glanced over his shoulder to see the dark figures slipping into the alley, their forms mere whispers in the gloom. They stumbled onto a street, stray cars parked haphazardly under flickering streetlights. An old diner stood at the corner, an oasis of fluorescent comfort in a desolate landscape. "In there!" Oliver shouted, pulling Ethan through the glass doors just as they heard raised voices behind them. Inside, the diner was almost empty, just a few late-night patrons slumped over coffee cups. The waitress shot them a sidelong glance, eyebrows raised but lips sealed. Oliver felt the weight of her gaze, a judgment he couldn't afford right now. Help us. Ethan said, his voice trembling as they slid into a booth. Oliver crouched down, trying to shield them as best he could. Stay low, he whispered, scanning the glass front. Ethan looked up at him, fear alive in his eyes. They were after me. Why? Who are they? I don't know, Oliver said, forcing calm into his own voice. But we're going to figure this out. Suddenly, the diner door swung open, and a bell jingled. A wave of anxiety washed over Oliver as he caught sight of one of the men, tall, built like a brick wall, scanning the room with cold, calculating eyes. His presence felt like a storm was brewing just outside. Oh God, Oliver muttered, feeling a cold sweat break out on his brow. The man's gaze landed on the both of them, and instinct kicked in. Get out the back. He hissed at Ethan, motioning toward the kitchen entrance. What about you? Go. Oliver urged, shoving the boy gently but firmly. Ethan didn't hesitate, slipping out of the booth and darting toward the back. As he moved, the thud of heavy boots echoed behind him. Oliver rose to his feet, desperation pooling in his gut. He couldn't let them catch Ethan. With no other choice, he turned and made a dash toward the door, mentally preparing for whatever came next. Just as he reached the threshold, the burly man blockaded the entrance. Not so fast. He growled, eyes narrowing into slits. Oliver's heart thundered in his chest, the world around him fading, narrowing down to this singular moment of danger. With a surge of adrenaline, he shoved past, slamming into the man and sending him stumbling back. Oliver barreled into the street, his breath harsh against the night air, searching for Ethan's small frame. Ethan! He yelled, voice strained. There was no answer. Panic shot through Oliver's veins like ice. Had they taken him? Then he spotted a flash of movement out of the corner of his eye. Ethan was scrambling behind a dumpster, peering around nervously and glancing back at Oliver. Relief flooded through him as he made his way to the boy. Stay close. He warned, pulling Ethan to his feet. We have to find help. We can't stay out here. No, Ethan began, but he cut himself off, eyes wide as he peered at something behind Oliver. Oliver's instincts fired, and he turned to see shadows loom again. Run! He shouted, taking Ethan's hand as they bolted down the street, the echoing threats pursuing them like a hound on the hunt. As they rounded a corner, Oliver's mind raced with possibilities. Why were they after Ethan? The questions clawed at him, but one thing pressed heavier than any other. Whatever they were running from, it wasn't just danger, it was a truth that could shatter everything they thought they knew. With their escape unfinished and the night darkening ominously, Oliver realized the stakes were much greater than he ever imagined. What would they have to confront next? Would the truth finally claw its way to the surface, or would it remain buried, dark and deadly? Oliver and Ethan sprinted through the alleys, their feet pounding against the wet pavement. Gasping, Oliver glanced back, the darkness enveloping them like a predator stalking its prey. The heavy footsteps behind them pressed down on his mind, every beat a reminder that they were being hunted. Where do we go? Ethan whimpered, fear etched across his small face. Just keep running. Oliver yelled, tightening his grip on the boy's hand. They shoved past another dumpster, skirting around the corner of an abandoned building that loomed like a ghost in the night. Look! Ethan pointed ahead, eyes wide. There's a light. A glow flickered from a nearby shop. It was a convenience store, the kind that never truly closed. The neon sign buzzed defiantly against the darkness. Some instinct told Oliver that it might be a sanctuary, at least for the moment. Without hesitation, he sprinted toward it, dragging Ethan along. Bursting through the door, they stumbled inside. The jingle of a small bell sounded, but it felt more like a warning. Close it. Ethan urged, panic rising as he glanced over his shoulder. Oliver dove for the door just as a figure appeared in the glass. He slammed it shut, locking it behind them. The shop was dimly lit, shelves crammed with snacks and drinks, a low hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Help! We need help! Ethan cried, cutting through the still air. The cashier, a weary woman in her 50s, looked up, brow furrowed. She was chewing gum slowly, unfazed by the sudden intrusion, but the concern surfaced when she noticed the boy's ragged breaths and wide eyes. "What is going on?" she asked, her tone skeptical but curious. "They're coming." Oliver gasped, his chest heaving. "Men, I don't know who they are, but they're after us." A flicker of recognition crossed her face, and she shook her head as if shaking off all previous thoughts. "All right, stay low. I'll call the cops." "No!" Ethan shouted, his voice sharp with fear. "They'll know where we are." The cashier's eyes darted to the back of the shop where a door stood ajar. "There's a storage room, go now." Without waiting for confirmation, Oliver grabbed Ethan's hand again and bolted for the door, the girl's warning echoing in his mind. Inside, the storage room was cramped and cluttered, boxes stacked high and the air thick with the smell of stale cardboard. They ducked behind a stack of boxes, their hearts pounding in sync with the faint sounds from the front of the store. "Do you think they saw us?" Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "I don't know," Oliver confessed, his pulse racing. "But we can't stay here forever." The moments dragged on in a suffocating silence. Outside, the faint sound of the door chiming was followed by hurried footsteps. Oliver's gut twisted with dread. They were close. The door creaked open, and Oliver's breath hitched. Shadows spilled into the storage room as two men entered. They scanned the space, their faces lit by the soft glow of their phones. "It's here." "I know it," one of them grunted, his voice deep and dangerous. "That kid can't be far." Ethan trembled beside Oliver, his small frame shaking with fear. Oliver dared not move, knowing that the slightest sound could give them away. "Think he is hiding?" the second man said, irritation thick in his tone. "Let us check the back." The pair started advancing deeper into the storage, and Oliver felt the panic rise like bile in his throat. "Oliver," Ethan whispered, clutching his sleeve. "No, no," Oliver muttered, his mind racing for a plan. They couldn't be caught here, and the truth lingered like a storm cloud hanging over them. But why were they so determined to find Ethan? "Ethan," he whispered suddenly, "if they get us, you have to remember what I said about running." Ethan looked up at him, swallowing hard as the men's voices grew louder. This was at the moment they'd have to choose between confronting danger or running blindly into the unknown. Just then, the storage room door swung open wider, and one of the men stepped in, a low grin curling across his lips. "Got you now." Oliver's gut twisted as he realized the collision course was unavoidable. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw something, a small window, barely closed, leading to escape. They had one chance. "Go!" he shouted, pushing Ethan towards it. As the chaos erupted behind them, Oliver knew they were diving deeper into a game that could change everything, but the truth remained like a whisper amidst the danger. What was it that Ethan held on to so tightly? And what secrets were they about to uncover that could shatter the very fabric of their lives? Oliver felt the weight of Ethan's small body as he pushed him toward the window. The glass was dusty and cracked, but it was their only way out. With one swift motion, Ethan squeezed through, fear igniting his movements, and Oliver followed close behind, just as the men started to shout. "Get them!" one of them barked, his voice echoing like a growl in the tight space. The chill of the night air hit Oliver as he landed awkwardly on the ground outside, but there was no time to think about pain. He grabbed Ethan's hand again, and they took off down the alley, pushing past stacked garbage and shadows that seemed to morph into lurking enemies. "Where do we go now?" Ethan gasped, adrenaline coursing through him. "Just keep moving," Oliver urged, leading them away from the store, heart racing in syncopation with their hurried breaths. The alley opened into a wider street bathed in the cold glare of streetlights. Oliver's mind raced, seeking refuge or a sign in the obscurity. They ran past the backs of buildings, their silhouettes lost in shadow. Then, in the distance, a faint sound reached them, laughter and music. A bar. Were people in there safe? Would anyone help them? Ethan started, but Oliver was already pulling him toward the noise, his instinct driving him forward. He'd rather face a crowd than the darkness pursuing them. As they neared the bar, a voice drifted into their ears. Another drink, anyone? The warm atmosphere contrasted starkly with their fear, but could they trust it? Stay close. Oliver whispered fiercely, pushing the door open. The dim interior was filled with the buzz of conversation and flashing lights. People crowded the bar, laughter bubbling up to the low ceiling, but Oliver felt their presence like a weight pressing on him. The bartender glanced over, eyebrows raised in curiosity. What can I get for you? Nothing. We just need help. Oliver quirked his head back toward the entrance, eyes darting to the door like a hawk. The bartender softened, noticing the tension etched into their faces. All right, take a seat at the back. You look like you need it. Ethan collapsed into a booth, his eyes wide, scanning the establishment as if someone might be watching them from the shadows. Who are they? Ethan whispered, his voice shaking. Why do they want me? I don't know, but we'll figure this out. Oliver felt a tight knot in his chest. Time was running out, and with it, the certainty of their safety. Suddenly, the door swung open again, and the loud chatter halted. The two men from earlier stepped through, their eyes scanning, hungry like wolves. Oliver's heart plummeted. They had to leave. Get up. He urged. Now. They bolted out of the booth, racing to the back exit, but one of the men was already moving toward them, knocking over a table in his wake. Chairs clattered and drinks spilled as patrons gasped at the disturbance. Stop. The man shouted, determination plastered across his face. Oliver could see he wouldn't stop until they were captured. Panic surged through him as he yanked Ethan back towards the restroom door, hoping to find a way out. He glanced back too late. The man was gaining on them, an angry predator on their scent. Through the small window of the restroom, Oliver spotted the tight alley behind the bar. Could they slip through again? Was it safe? Let us go. He shouted, but the urgency of the moment froze Ethan in place. I don't want to. Ethan's voice cracked, panic consuming him. Listen. We can't let them catch us. You have to trust me. Oliver could see the uncertainty in Ethan's eyes, but he knew they had no time. After a heartbeat that felt like an eternity, Ethan nodded. With a heart full of dread and a glimmer of resolve, Oliver pushed the door open, leading them back into chaos. But as they stepped out, a cold hand gripped Oliver's shoulder. Got you now, the man rasped, pulling him back into a grip he couldn't shake. As Ethan screamed, Oliver felt the world narrowing to a dangerous point. He was torn between fighting back and saving the boy beside him. But suddenly the bartender rushed forward, shouting, "Let him go." In that instant, fate turned once again, but Oliver felt the pulse of truth lurking just beyond the chaos. Why had the men come after them? And what did Ethan truly hold on to that made him a target? As the confrontation unfolded, something shattered in the air, and even though the danger loomed closer, Oliver sensed that the darkest secrets were yet to be revealed. What would happen when they finally uncovered the truth? Oliver struggled against the grip that held him hostage. The man loomed over him, a predator with cold eyes filled with malicious victory. Time seemed suspended. The bar fell silent, all eyes glued to the scene unfolding like a horrific tableau. Let him go. The bartender demanded again, his voice cutting through the tension like a knife. The crowd stirred, whispers rising in a blend of fear and curiosity. Ethan's face went pale, his small frame trembling as he took a step back, desperately searching for a way to help Oliver. Stop! He cried out, his voice cracking with panic. But that only seemed to ignite the anger in the man holding on to Oliver. He pulled him closer, a menacing grin spreading across his face. You think you can just run away? You think you're safe here? Get your hands off him! Shouted a guy from a nearby table. He rose, his imposing figure cutting through the air like a shield. Brave, but reckless, Oliver thought. Would this stranger be able to help? Don't was all Oliver managed to gasp, but it was too late. The guy lunged forward, fists swinging. Chaos erupted like fireworks that eye in the blink of an eye, tables tipped, drinks spilled, and the crowd erupted into cries and screams. Oliver's pulse raced as he felt the man's grip loosen for just a heartbeat. He seized the chance, twisting away, desperate to reach Ethan. Run! Go! Oliver shouted to Ethan, who stood frozen in a whirlpool of fear and confusion. There'd be time for explanations later if they even made it out of there. Ethan blinked, as if waking from a nightmare, and moved, bolting toward the back exit. Oliver turned to follow, adrenaline fueling his every step. But he could still hear the clash of fists and the growls of anger behind him. Stop them! The man yelled, regaining his footing and ferocity, pursuit igniting in his eyes again. Ethan! Oliver shouted, but as he rounded a corner, he noticed the boy had stumbled, a chair tangling around his legs, sending him tumbling. No! The cry tore from him, raw and desperate. Ethan scrambled back to his feet, but the moment cost them precious seconds. Oliver ran, heart leaping into his throat. Time warped around him, every pulse felt like an eternity. He slammed into Ethan just as the man was upon them. They hurtled through the back door, the cool night air hitting them like a slap. Oliver barely spared a glance back as they plunged into the alley, but could still hear the uproar behind them. The bar held a storm of chaos, but outside was just as dark and menacing. Keep running! Oliver urged, pulling Ethan along. Their surroundings blurred as they darted through side streets, seeking whichever path seemed the safest, drenched in an immediate dread that made every shadow appear alive. What do they want? Ethan panted, spilling out the question like a soft wine. I don't know. Oliver gritted out, tearing past another corner, breath ragged. But we will find out. We have to keep going. Sudden footfalls thundered behind them, voices echoing off the brick buildings. The hunt was on. The alley became an underworld, littered with remnants of forgotten nights and unspeakable secrets. Yet amidst the shadows, Oliver spotted a faint glimmer ahead, a parked car. Over there! He exclaimed, determination surging within him. They reached the vehicle just as the heavy footsteps intensified, echoing like dark drumbeats behind them. Unlock it! Come on! Oliver shouted, rushing around to the passenger side. Ethan was already fumbling with the door handle, shaking in anxiety. Please! He whimpered, beads of sweat moistening his forehead. Just do it! Oliver snapped, not out of anger but out of sheer urgency. They didn't have a moment to waste. The door clicked open. Oliver dove inside, quickly glancing behind them. The figures were emerging into the alley, silhouettes stark against the flickering lights, cruel intentions written across their features. Just as Ethan climbed into the seat beside him, the roar of the engine came to life. With a quick glance, Oliver forced the car into gear and sped away, tires squealing against the asphalt. They raced into the night, but as the adrenaline began to recede, Oliver's thoughts raced faster than the engine. How did this happen? Why was Ethan being hunted? And most importantly, what lay ahead that could complicate their escape even further? As the distant sounds of sirens began to fill the spaces behind them, Oliver tightened his grip on the wheel. Would anybody believe their story? What would it mean for Ethan's life? The night had only just begun, and the truth felt like a shadow, lurking closer with every passing moment. What was it Ethan was not telling him? The roar of the engine engulfed them, but the chaos was far from silenced. Oliver's heart raced with both fear and determination as he tore through the dark streets of the city, weaving between flickering streetlights and shadows that seemed to close in on them. Where do we go? Ethan's voice cracked, panic spilling over as he glanced anxiously through the rear window. The headlights of their pursuers sliced through the darkness behind them, growing closer with every second. I don't know, Oliver admitted, adrenaline dulling his instincts. Just keep an eye out for anywhere we can hide, or lose them. Ethan swallowed hard, nodding as he clutched the seat with trembling hands. For a moment, the weight of their situation pressed down on him, a suffocating panic threatening to swallow them whole. "Do you think they'll follow us?" he whispered, his voice quivering like a leaf in the wind. "I don't know. We can't think about that right now," Oliver replied sharply, his pulse hammering in his ears. "Just keep your eyes peeled." As Oliver maneuvered through tight corners, a plan began to form in his mind. They needed to make a move to either lose their pursuers or confront them. No more running. Suddenly, an idea jolted through him like electricity. "Ethan. We need to get to the old warehouse near the docks. It's on 5th. If we can make it there, we might find something, anything to help." Ethan's eyes widened, uncertainty flickering across his features. "But what if they find us there?" "The only way they find us is if we don't prepare," Oliver shot back, his voice steadying with resolve. "Trust me, it's our best shot." Ethan took a deep breath, a fragile thread of courage binding him to Oliver's confidence. Okay, I trust you." Driving like a madman, Oliver pushed the car harder, the engine protesting like a wounded animal as they barreled through the city. Sirens wailed behind them, cutting through the night, a reminder that they weren't just running from some random thugs. There were serious stakes at play, and it was no longer just about them. Suddenly, in a flash of streetlights, Oliver caught a glimpse of the men from the bar, a pair of dark silhouettes gaining ground with unyielding purpose, their faces now clearer in the soft glow. "Hang on!" Oliver shouted, tearing around a corner sharply. The tires squealed, and the car lunged forward, but both boys felt a palpable shift, the tension simmering on the verge of explosion. "Think we lost them?" Ethan asked, hope creeping back into his voice. Before Oliver could respond, an echoing crash filled the air. A blinding jolt sent them dizzying into a spin as another car plowed right into their rear end. "Oh no!" Oliver yelled, fighting to regain control. The car swerved violently, tires screeching against the pavement, and Oliver, with pure instinct, wrestled the wheel just enough to avoid a full-throttle spin-out. Both boys shared a wild look, a silent acknowledgement of their crashing reality. This wasn't just a game anymore. "Get ready," Oliver warned, speeding down a narrow alley. There was no turning back now. They could either capitulate to whatever was hunting them or face the dark secrets lurking beneath the shadows of their own lives. He slammed on the brakes before a derelict warehouse, the looming structure seeming both inviting and terrifying. Ethan hesitated, looking around at the broken windows and the shadows flitting along the walls. What if this was a trap? "It might be," Oliver said, his voice steady despite the dread gnawing at his insides. "But if we stay here, we're dead." They climbed out of the car, uncertainty coiling around them like smoke. The darkness embraced them as they cautiously stepped toward the jagged entrance, every sound amplified, footfalls echoing, whispers of wind, and their own racing hearts. What awaited them inside the warehouse felt like a storm gathering strength. They were stepping into something far more chilling than mere danger. It would either lead them to the truth or plunge them into an abyss from which they might never return. With one last glance back at the street, where headlights blinked like distant stars, they stepped into the murky depths of the building, ready to confront whatever it was that waited for them inside. But Oliver couldn't shake the gnawing sensation in his gut. What revelation lay just beyond the threshold, waiting for them to unearth it? And would it change everything they thought they knew? The air in the warehouse hung thick with dust and the scent of old wood, the darkness swallowing them whole. Oliver and Ethan paused, their senses heightened, every creak and groan of the building amplified in the silence. Shadows danced on the walls as the faint rustle of something unsettled caught their attention. "This place is eerie," Ethan murmured, stepping lightly, as if the floor might crack beneath him. "Stay close," Oliver whispered gravely. They moved deeper inside, the beam of his phone flashlight flickering unpredictably. The faint light illuminated broken crates and rusted machinery that loomed ominously in the corners, like sentinels of a forgotten time. "A lot of old junk here," Ethan said nervously, running a hand over a dusty table. "You think we could find something to defend ourselves?" The hum of adrenaline still surged through Oliver. We might have to. Just keep your eyes open. Suddenly, a loud bang reverberated through the building, the sound ricocheting off the walls and stretching their tension into a taut wire. They both froze, eyes darting toward the source. Oliver's heart raced, thundering in his chest like a warning bell. Did you hear that? Ethan's voice was barely above a whisper, trembling with fear. Yeah, Oliver breathed, straining to listen for another sound. We need to check it out. As they crept toward the back of the warehouse, the gnawing feeling in Oliver's gut intensified. The shadows in this part were thicker, darker, wrapping around them like a living entity. With each step, a creeping dread settled over him, resonating with an unshakable conviction this place was wrong. Then, without warning, a figure emerged from the darkness, and both boys jumped back, hearts racing as a woman stepped into the light, a wild mix of panic and urgency flashing in her eyes. Please. She gasped, her voice trembling. You have to help me. What? Who are you? Oliver shot back, both confused and on edge. I'm Mia, she said, looking over her shoulder as if expecting someone or something to follow her. They're coming, they're going to take him. Take who? Ethan asked, glancing desperately around, the fear palpable. My brother. You have to save him. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, vulnerability seeped into her panic. He's in danger. They've got him. Okay, calm down. Oliver urged, stepping closer to her, instinctively protective. Where is he? Who's after you? But her eyes widened in fear, and she pointed behind them. They're here. Hurry. Oliver turned, just in time to see a flash of headlights cutting through the darkness outside, illuminating figures pouring into the warehouse from the shadows. What the hell? Oliver muttered under his breath. Run! Ethan yelled, his instincts kicking in, and they bolted towards the rear of the warehouse. The initial glare from the headlights vanished quickly, replaced by encroaching darkness as they dashed through the aisles of debris. Where do we go? Ethan panted, glancing back at Mia. There's a door back there, behind the crates. She cried, pointing ahead as they sprinted through the maze of junk. Get ready. Oliver shouted as they reached the wall of crates. The sound of hurried footsteps grew louder behind them, closing in with each heartbeat. With adrenaline fueling him, Oliver shoved aside the crates, revealing a narrow door wedged slightly open. Get in! He shouted, urgency transforming into raw instinct as they rushed through the opening. They stumbled into the alley behind the warehouse, breathless and trembling, a soft drizzle beginning to fall, mixing with the adrenaline fueling their escape. Where's your brother? Oliver demanded, trying to gather his thoughts, the disorientation slowly clearing. He's at the old church on 7th. You have to hurry. Mia pleaded, her face pale under the streetlight's flickering glow. Time was running thin, but so was the room in Oliver's heart. Could they really save someone? A minute later, a chilling sound echoed within the warehouse, an ominous signal of pursuit. This isn't over, Oliver said, his insides twisting as they set off. Into the night. What forces pursued them, and what secrets lay at the heart of Mia's desperate plea? As they raced away into the shadows, one question pulsated through Oliver's mind: could they save her brother, or would they become part of a dark mystery they weren't prepared for? The dim streetlights flickered as they sprinted through the rain, their breaths forming puffs of mist in the chilly night air. The sound of their hurried footsteps was drowned out by the distant howl of the wind, but their hearts echoed fear just the same. This way! Mia shouted, veering left down a narrow alley. Oliver and Ethan followed, pushing their bodies against the brimming tension of the night. Every shadow felt threatening, every sound amplified a heartbeat, a whisper. The relentless drizzle felt like an ominous warning. Why are they after your brother? Oliver pressed, voice strained with urgency. Mia glanced back, her eyes glistening with tears. He's seen something he shouldn't have, something dangerous. They think he's a threat. Ethan's brow furrowed, panic weaving through his thoughts. And you? Why are you involved? Because I'm his sister. She snapped, her emotions bubbling over. I can't leave him. Oliver sensed her fear was a tangible force, gripping him as tightly as the rain-soaked air around them. They had to reach the church before it was too late. Images of what those figures might do to her brother danced in his mind, fueling his desperate resolve. Their feet struck through puddles, splashing water in chaotic arcs around them. Behind them, faint shouts rang out, voices commanding and harsh, growing closer with each frantic step. Faster! Oliver shouted, pushing himself harder, fear lighting a fire in his veins. The church was nearby, looming at the end of the street like a ghost from another time. Its spire jutted into the stormy sky, a silhouette against the bleak backdrop. As they rounded the corner, the church's looming shadows felt like a sanctuary. Mia, desperation painting her features, sprinted ahead, leading the charge. There! She cried, pointing to a side entrance, barely visible through the rain. They skidded to a halt, and Oliver thrust the door open. It creaked eerily, the sound echoing through the empty sanctuary and mingling with the sound of rainfall hitting the stone. Please be in here, Mia breathed, hope and fear battling for dominance as they flooded inside. The church was cold and dark, despite the heavy wood interiors. Mia's gaze darted around, searching desperately for any sign of her brother. Oliver and Ethan exchanged glances, a mix of disbelief and concern transforming into silent urgency. Where do we even look? Ethan asked, voice cracking slightly in the silence around them. I don't know. He could be anywhere. Mia's voice echoed with anxiety. Their eyes adjusted to the dim light filtering through stained glass windows, revealing rows of empty pews and scattered debris. Each creak of the building felt like a whisper, warning them of something lurking just out of reach. In the distance, they heard muffled sounds. A faint call, perhaps. Mia, listen. Oliver whispered, tilting his head. The world outside was churning with chaos, their pursuers no doubt converging on the church. They needed to find her brother fast. She nodded, urgency in her eyes as she led them deeper into the darkness of the church, past the altar and into a narrow hallway shrouded in shadows. Then, just as hope began to flutter in Oliver's chest, a sudden crash reverberated from deeper within the building, sending dread spiraling down their spines. Oliver froze, instinctively grabbing Mia's arm. Did you hear that? Ethan whispered, his voice barely above a breath. Yeah, Mia swallowed hard, and panic rushed back into her tone. That came from the basement. Are you sure? Oliver asked, heart racing. He could almost feel the tension coiling tighter around him. Mia nodded, determination flashing across her face despite the overwhelming fear. He hides down there sometimes. It's out the only place they wouldn't think to look. But just as she spoke, they heard footsteps echoing outside the church, sealing the door to escape. Go! Mia urged, adrenaline pushing her forward as she headed for a stairway leading to the basement. The shadows lurked thick, like deep water ready to swallow them whole. Oliver exchanged one last worried glance with Ethan before racing after Mia, the whispers of doubt growing silent. What awaited them at the bottom? Would they find her brother alive or stumble into a trap set by unspeakable forces? The question lingered as they descended into the darkness, their hopes dipping like the atmosphere around them. Would they uncover a savior or reveal a horror that could change everything? The secrets of the basement loomed ahead as Oliver's heart raced with fear. What awaited them down there? The basement was a dark, oppressive cavern that seemed to swallow their every sound. A chill seeped into their bones, making Oliver shiver as they descended the narrow staircase. Haphazard light bulbs flickered overhead, casting long shadows that danced in sync with their rising anxiety. Stay close, Oliver urged, glancing over at Ethan. The boy's eyes were wide with fear, his small hand trembling against Oliver's grip. Mia led the way, her voice a daring whisper. This is where I last saw him. He should be down here. As they reached the bottom, the air grew heavier, thick with the smell of dampness and decay. Dark shapes loomed in the corners, hidden behind old crates, remnants of what seemed to be forgotten memories. For a moment, they stood still, catching their breath as nervous energy crackled between them. And then they heard a muffled whimper, followed by a soft call. "Mia." The voice quivered, full of longing and dread, slicing through the tension like a knife. "Milo." Mia's voice broke, pure relief bursting free. She dashed toward a dusky corner where a frail figure huddled behind a pile of old boxes. "Milo." She cried again, her eyes brimming with tears. The boy, no older than Ethan, emerged from the shadows, dirty and visibly shaken, a mixture of fear and relief etched across his young face. "You came. I'm here. I'm so sorry it took so long," Mia said, enveloping her brother in a hug, squeezing him tightly. Milo seized her like a lifeline, leaning into her embrace, a sob escaping as he felt her warmth against the icy tendrils of fear that had wrapped around him for too long. As the reunion unfolded, Oliver took a cautious step back. He turned his gaze on Ethan, who was watching curiously. "Do you think it's over?" the boy asked, trepidation tainting his voice. "Not yet," Oliver murmured, still sensing the danger lurking outside. The faint murmurs of footsteps echoed up on the surface, closing in like vultures circling their prey. They had to move quickly. "Milo, we need to leave," Mia said, breaking from the embrace, her face a mix of determination and terror. "They're coming, and we can't let them find you here." "Who?" Milo looked at her, bewildered. "Who is coming?" In that moment, Oliver felt the weight of the truth crashing upon him. "We'll explain later. Right now, we've got to figure out how to get you out of here safely." Mia nodded, her brows furrowing as she turned to him. "Do you have a plan?" "Not much of one, but we'll have to make a run for it." He pointed upward. "We need to get back to the main floor and out into the alley. If we can evade them long enough, we can find a way to call for help." "Okay," Mia said, steeling herself. "I trust you." "Me too," Ethan chimed in, brushing the fear aside and bolstering his courage. As they made their way back to the stairs, a sudden crashing sound made them freeze. The thudding of footsteps drew closer, and Oliver's heart raced with urgency. "Now. Go." They charged up the steps, Mia and her brother sprinting just ahead, with Oliver and Ethan flanking them. Each footfall echoed against the walls like a countdown clock, growing louder and more frantic. "Please, please, please," Oliver whispered under his breath. They reached the door that led to the church sanctuary, and Oliver pushed against it with all his strength. The door creaked open, revealing the dimly lit hallway ahead. But as they burst through, they were met with a chilling sight. A group of dark figures loomed just outside, cutting off their escape as if they'd been waiting. "Going somewhere?" One of them smirked, eyes glimmering with malicious intent. Panic surged through Oliver, freezing him momentarily. He was trapped there, cover blown. But in that instant, he felt the warmth of Ethan's hand squeezing his. "What do we do?" "Trust me," Oliver shouted, finding the resolve to shove through the figures blocking their path. He could almost see the light of hope glimmering at the edge of the chaos, pushing him forward. "Get the kids!" One figure barked, lunging toward Ethan and Milo. But Oliver was faster, adrenaline surging in his veins as he flung an arm around Ethan, pulling him away just in time. "Run!" he yelled, propelling the four of them through the door leading out to the street. They bolted into the night, the cold air filling their lungs as they hit the pavement running. The threatening voices called out behind them, fading into the distance, but Oliver knew they couldn't stop now. They burst onto a quiet street, scrambling toward the nearest corner, hearts racing and feet pounding on the damp asphalt. "Where now?" Ethan gasped, eyes darting in a panic, the reality of their escape tugging at him. Mia held tightly to Milo's hand, determination etched on her face. "There's a police station just a few blocks down. Let us go." Oliver urged, steeling himself as they pressed forward, darting between shadows and streetlights, every step taking them further from danger. With the police station finally coming into view, Oliver felt both relief and urgency. Would they believe their story? Would they arrive before danger caught up with them? Oliver ended up taking a deep breath, pushing through the last barriers of fear. "We got this," he assured the others, feeling the bond forged between them in this nightmare. As they reached the station, they burst through the doors, breathless and wide-eyed, the urgency of their situation spilling through their stammering voices. "Please. We need help." The officer at the desk quickly rose, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm as he took in their appearance and urgency. Just as the tide began to turn, Oliver felt a collective breath being held. They were safe now, but what revelations awaited them? As the comforting hum of safety buzzed around them, Oliver sensed that truth, the haunting threads of Lily's voice, Mia's brother, and the darkness pursuing them would slowly unravel. They had found sanctuary, but the battle was far from over. What of the secrets behind those pursuing them? And as Oliver felt peace for the first time since the chaos began, a thought pricked at his heart. The past would have its reckoning, and whatever lay beneath the surface would soon emerge if he allowed it. But for now, they were safe. Can we trust them? Ethan asked quietly, the shadows of earlier events still lingering in his gaze. Oliver's grip tightened around Ethan's shoulder. "Yeah, we can," he replied, finding truth in that simple assurance. "We're going to figure this out together." As they stood surrounded by the flickering lights of police monitors and the murmur of order being restored, for once, the shadows around them felt like something they could face. Perhaps in revealing the truth, they could finally silence the ghosts of their past and walk free into whatever dawn awaited them. It was just the beginning of their story, and the world would hear them. Now, what will you do? This is the moment to support us. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything, and only true fans understand the importance of lifting the channel to new heights.